Welcome to Moving Panels One Shot. Let's have a nerdy little conversation. So today I'm going to be chatting with kind of a roundtable discussion here after the premiere of Disney Plus and Marvel Studios' WandaVision. The first 2 episodes have dropped on Disney Plus. We are releasing this episode after the 3rd episode, assuming they're not releasing them 2 at a time like they did here. Releasing the 3rd episode, but we are recording this the same weekend as the first 2. Also want to give clear spoiler warnings. If you haven't watched WandaVision, we will be discussing pretty much everything that happened in episodes 1 and 2. So I'm going to go and make that clear. But joining me for this discussion, first off, is longtime friend and multiple-time guest host for me, and that is Mr. Chad Smith. How are you, Chad?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's good to see you guys ready to talk about some comic nerdiness.
And also joining us from the 80s Flick Flashback podcast, and also a multiple-time guest host for me, it is Mr. Tim Williams.
Hello, this is For the Children. For the Children.
For the Children,
For
yes.
the children.
So first spoiler at like 53-second mark. You just
there we go.
jump right,
I decided to go
Right
ahead
into
and
it.
just little flirt.
Nice.
All right, so here we are, WandaVision, what was really, even though it wasn't meant to be, what is the first movie of Phase 4 of the MCU. Of course, it was supposed to be Black Widow, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic, that got postponed, and WandaVision, as one of the first of the, half a dozen television series Marvel has planned, first to come out. Of course, it is... I don't know if you'd call it a parody, but it's an homage to classic television shows. The first episode hitting the 50s with a clear Dick Van Dyke feel to it, which I heard they actually consulted him.
Yeah, he was a consultant and had no idea that the MCU was a thing or nearly as big as it is.
Yeah.
Pretty funny.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and then the second episode, not a drastic change in style, but clearly more in the 60s with what was clearly a nod to the Bewitched television show in the opening. So let's get it out there. Initial impressions. Chad, what'd you think?
So I guess my first thought was, why are they even bothering dropping 2 on the first weekend?
Yeah.
And then you watch them. And for me, it was immediately clear. If you had just dropped episode 1, that would have been a very odd episode to try to limp through and then wait a week to see episode 2. So they had to set you up to then set the hook in the second episode. I feel like the first episode, I mean, you have 20 minutes of basically a 1950s sitcom with nothing terribly unusual or anything for a little while, and then all of a sudden, Vision has to rip a piece of steak out of this dude's throat, apparently. I like long setups. I know a lot of the internet did not. It seemed like there were a lot of people that had problems with how slow they built. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Now, I'm all for the slow burn. I love a slow burn. Now, there's only, 8 episodes for this series, and so it's going to come a lot faster than we actually think. But I definitely, I'm all for the slow burn. All right, Tim, what about you? Initial impression?
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree with having 2 episodes to start with. If I had just seen, now I'm a diehard Marvel person, MCU fan, so I would have kept watching the first episode. But I was surprised, basically because of all the ads they've done. I was expecting to jump from the different sitcom eras, not let's just spend a full 25 minutes in this one, I Love Lucy, Dick Van Dyke style show. But I kind of liked it better that way because it of course, me growing up, I remember watching I Love Lucy and the Dick Van Dyke show. So there was a lot of big nostalgia for me watching this thing. That's really cool to do that. And then, of course, scratching that Marvel MC as well. I really enjoyed it. So I was a little, I can't say disappointed. It was interesting to me that it did not move as fast to the next phase or the next series as doing one at a time. But now knowing that's the concept, I'm even more excited about being that way. And maybe now realizing it's not going to be as confusing as I thought it was going to be, because I was thinking I might have to keep up with which TV sitcom she's in for this 5 minutes, and it's going to switch back and forth. So I don't know. But I enjoyed it. My wife watched it. Not as big of an MCU fan as me. She's seen all the movies, but she doesn't, talk about stuff like I do. But she really enjoyed it, and she was kind of disappointed there's only 2 episodes. Where's the third one? I'm ready. Let's go. So, so we're excited about the next episode.
No, we were the same. I'm sure if you haven't heard, my wife and I, Bethany, we debated on a one shot before binging versus weekly watching.
Right.
I love the weekly watching. Bethany does not. So she was exactly the same. As soon as that second episode ended, she was like, okay, next episode. And I'm like, nope, we don't get the next episode until next week. But no, I actually knew about the each episode was kind of a different sitcom setup.
Era in TV,
Yeah.
But, and of course, I'm sitting there going, wait, eight episodes, and they start in the 50s, then they went 60s, and I'm going 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000. I'm like, they're going to run out of decades.
Yeah.
And honestly, what do you do in the 2000s or 2001 that would really...
Well, which my first thing we'll find out if we're wrong, right or wrong. I wonder is if they get closer, like into the 80s, 90s, if then it begins to jump back and forth and become more scrambled. Because I guess one of the prevailing theories is that these are all creations of Wanda, that she's trying to find some kind of normalcy wherever she is. Of course, we don't know what that is yet, but and if she is somewhat losing her mind, and one theory is she is going to become one of the villains in the Doctor Strange movie, since this is tied into that maybe it's going to become a little not as cookie cutter as we've so far.
So I don't know. I've read all those theories, and I think that's super interesting. But I also distrust anything that Kevin Feige says or allows to come out early, because he is a master of deception.
Yeah.
So I really kind of wonder if the whole multiverse of madness titling and all that stuff is partly a misdirection. I'm wondering if she has anything to do with this at all.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that I think part of the series has to come into the real world sooner or later. So I don't really have a problem with the one episode per decade basically kind of thing. So I don't know. I think toward the end of the run we'll come into seeing what's actually going on, not just the sitcom version of it.
Which we've kind of already been hinted at with the trailers. I mean, we've seen Randall Park's character, who we were kind of hinted at in that second episode, where I don't know about y'all, that was his voice coming through the radio.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of already hinted at there is a crossover. So let's get into talking about it. And again, spoilers abound here if you're listening. Do you think this is... Because based off of what Randall Park's character is saying, Wanda, who's doing this to you? Mm-hmm. So is Wanda doing it, or is someone forcing her to do it?
Yeah.
Like, is she prisoner of someone?
So it definitely seems like that she's captive right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now is she trapped in this bizarre sitcom world somehow, or is that her coping mechanism with her captivity? I think that's kind of the interesting questions that'll come out through the series from what we've seen so far.
Which brings me to come off of that. Is this a Truman Show type setup? I say that because of one moment. I'm basing that literally off of one moment, and that is when Gwendolyn introduces herself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because you can tell for a second she doesn't remember who she is, and then she says what her name is, and you kind of wonder, is it because she forgot who she was? Or what might be more obvious is kind of the same way Vision and Wanda don't remember things. Is it because of whoever's messing with them, don't know who they are or whatever it might be. But with that being said, that character, this was released before the show came out. That character is that little girl from Captain Marvel, now grown up. And so we know that she's a bigger character and all that. So, I mean, where are they going with that? Is she working for S.H.I.E.L.D. or obviously S.W.O.R.D., as we clearly see in these, or is she a prisoner like possibly Wanda and Vision are?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. And you do have to wonder, especially since they've already announced that in Phase 4 we're going more to the cosmic stuff. So that implies Secret Wars, some of the other stuff there, and the Eternals movie is coming. So you are talking about beings with, theoretically the power to do this kind of setup. So I don't know, but the sword thing, I was about to hit that. The helicopter, the color helicopter in the bush. What? I'm still at a loss. Like, obviously, sword, but what's that representing? Is that something that corresponds to the real world? Like, what do you guys think?
Well, Sword in the comics, they are kind of the what would you call them? The space division of Shield. So that does tie into those aspects that you were just talking about. Real quick, because when you brought that up, so I watched both of these episodes twice. Mm-hmm. I watched them once for just the sheer entertainment purpose, and then I watched them back again to see what I could catch. You mentioned the scene with the helicopter. Both times I tried, and I didn't catch anything both times. But did you notice after she picks it up, she looks back as if somebody was looking at her through the window?
Mm-hmm.
Did y'all?
The upstairs window.
Yeah.
Discussion, and I thought she was trying to figure out if that's when the noise against the window and not the tree branch, that she was wondering if that's what was making noise that was waking them up, not that she thought someone was looking at her through the window. But that's just the way I took it.
What about here's a wild theory. What about the fact that the helicopter was in the colors of Iron Man's suit?
Yeah, that was the first thing I noticed.
Yeah.
Then I wondered, is this something Stark is trying to help her get out?
Since there are already Stark commercials, I was going to point that out too. That's the one tie-in to kind of the rest of the world that we've seen so far, was the very bizarre Stark commercial.
Yeah.
And the strange close-up of her as the toast gets ready. I was like, I don't know what they're trying to tell us here, but it's creepy.
Well, of course, and that was also the first indication, the red light turning, or the light turning red in the middle of the commercial. So the first that was really, I think in that first episode, that was our first indication of kind of something breaking through. Mm-hmm. That probably more so, that one commercial, probably more so than the rest of it, really gave it that like Twilight Zone type feel.
Yeah.
It was very strange. Back to the whole tree branch hitting. We're way scattered on this, but the tree branch hitting the window and everything. Am I the only one that was kind of shocked at Vision being a kind of a coward? Like, I thought that scene was kind of funny. Like, they weren't the typical superheroes, so that was fun.
Well, it seems that even when she told him to help, when the boss was choking, it seems that he's very much, at her beck and call, or at her command. So once again, if it goes back to, in what we understand of so far at the end of Endgame, Vision is dead. So there is really no Vision. So this is all something that's a world that she's created in her head. He's not going to be like the regular Vision. He's only going to do what kind of she allows him to do, or how she perceives to do that. So if she sees herself as a stronger one and he's the weak one, then that's going to come across that way. So
that scene.
I did have that same like. Why
that scene definitely, you could tell he was looking at her like, you've got to let me help him.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought the same thing, was he can't do anything without her allowing it.
Right. Right.
So that was a very interesting little moment.
I'll have to rewatch, but to throw a little bit of a wrench in that, just again on first take, like, he is like living a life outside of just being in scenes with her, though. So he is doing decision making at work.
True.
You had that funny dynamic. He went and got gum drunk, apparently. Like, that's what intoxicates Vision somehow, by himself. And he was being forceful at that meeting, even, wanting to dive into protecting the neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Both of which are phenomenal scenes, by the way. Yeah. But Paul Bettany does not disappoint. He's a funny dude.
No, they both play their parts so well.
He does have, at the very least, some level of autonomy. So I don't think it's necessarily just, he's part of her dream kind of thing. Like, he has been given some level of sentience at whatever he is currently. So I don't know, man.
So, and I want to make it clear, I can't necessarily speak for Chad and Tim, but this is initial reactions. We haven't done any research. This is really just what 3 comic book nerds thought watching these 2 episodes. Mm-hmm. And I know Chad and I had discussed this back when we discussed the upcoming things and whatnot. But after seeing it, what are your thoughts about the whole House of M tie-in?
I don't see that coming, honestly. Like I wasn't going into it looking for that for House of M to show up. I just, those guys at Marvel Studios are geniuses, so they might pull a bait and switch somewhere in there, but I don't see this being based from House of M. I don't know
So even
how
with
you
the
get
possible, her, and again, spoilers, her being pregnant at the end of the last episode for the second episode.
Yeah. So we're just gonna have to see where that goes at all, because was she being duped into not thinking she's pregnant? So is them gaining color? Is that part of them realizing what is actually happening in the world, kind of thing? All this sort of stuff. But the pregnancy would be super baffling, because Vision again has been dead as far as we know. So, and he's a robot, so we don't even know if anything is capable there.
Well, but that brings me, because again, I'm not as big of a Marvel fan as I'm sure people know, but I do know enough. What about I'm going to throw it out there because it's the one theory I have. What about the Mephisto possibly tie-in?
Yeah.
And there are some clues. And Agnes is the big clue.
Yeah.
Because the fact
you haven't seen her husband yet.
You haven't seen her husband. Her name is Agnes. And in the comics, Mephisto has a quote-unquote wife named Agatha Harkness. You squeeze that name together, it becomes Agnes. There was even the joke at the little, I forgot what the meeting was that Wanda visited, where the woman said the devil's in the details. And then Agnes says that's not the only place he is.
Yeah,
maybe that would be pretty trippy, but... another one? So we talked about the sword reference on the helicopter. I did not go back and look at it, so I'm going to ask you, Laramie. Did you catch? Was that still the sword logo on the beekeeper?
Yes, there was a sword logo on his back, and then at the end of the first episode, the person taking notes, when he closes his notebook, there's a sword logo on the notebook.
Yeah. Man, this is definitely going to pick up quickly, I feel like. But is there any indication that you saw that the beekeeper and the voice trying to talk to her are on the same side?
I don't know about that. That was...
Because that was my other thought. Is this kind of a Planet Hulk adjacent story? Is Sword the one that have her captured to keep her insanity in check from destroying, reality as we know it or whatever? So, because the beekeeper was pretty ominous. He didn't seem like he was there to help.
And she was quick to say, nope, don't want that, and rewound and changed that scene. So,
which again gave us another indication that she has control of what is happening. So let's tie in another that was really an obvious for more so comic book people maybe than just your average. Do you think there's anything out of the commercial from the second episode that had the Hydra logo, that the watch was called Strucker?
Yeah.
Do we think there's more to that, or was that just a fun Easter egg?
I think it's gotta be. I think they're just dropping also little breadcrumb clues that we're not really going to understand how it all makes sense until like episode 6 or 7, maybe even 8. That's my theory, and that's my theory.
Well, it's not a leap in the sense that Hydra was controlling S.H.I.E.L.D. This is super canon at this point. So, have they maintained a level of control? Has the proverbial Hydra head not been as severed as we thought? Are they still invested in this and they're trying to do something to Wanda to get some result that they're looking for, that sort of thing? And my next question would be, what does that something have to do with her and Vision's magic show? Because that was pretty awesome.
So going back to the sword reference, because I've been dwelling on that since you said it, that again, the end of the first episode would clearly almost make it look like Sword is monitoring everything. So is it a situation where they're watching what is happening because they're in control of it in a way? But then that would go against the Randall Park connection, which he's Agent Wu, because remember he was in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Would that go against him saying, trying to get Wanda's attention? Because if they're behind it, why would he be trying to break through, trying to get Wanda's attention through the radio?
Well, in that statement, you're assuming that Agent Wu is working for SWORD. So I don't think he is, because that beekeeper thing was just too ominous to me. Like, he is, there was more of an aggressor. Even the fact that it was a beekeeper seems a little bizarre and a little, we've got you contained kind of idea. So I don't think that those two entities are working together. I don't think that SWORD and the voice, hopefully it is Agent Wu, are on the same side.
Well, because he is an agent of SHIELD. So
yeah. And
are you thinking SWORD's not a part of SHIELD in this universe?
Well, so how much of SHIELD remains? I mean, you do have oh my gosh, why am I losing my mind? The aliens that can shapeshift.
The Skrull.
Yeah, that are impersonating Samuel L. Jackson and all that. So we do have a version of SHIELD, but again, like, how much of it is under our protagonist's control versus Hydra being thrown in there too, that sort of thing. So because they were clearly pulling the strings when we thought SHIELD was doing virtually nothing but good, but they were trying to gather the soul stone, or the power stones, to themselves all along. So is this another situation like that? And now Wu is the rogue agent who has kind of figured out that SWORD is not doing something good with this, and that they're trying to extract something from Wanda that is bad for the rest of us.
Good theory to me. It's better than what I had.
I mean, so I think we're jumping in now into theories about where this show is going. So let's jump into where we were, where it looks like we're headed from previous movies. So in Endgame, Loki escaped with the Tesseract, and they're going to be doing a Loki television show, and so clearly he's created some sort of alternate universe. You have to think alternate timeline, and the Tesseract, that stone, still exists. I'm recalling a brief moment in one of the trailers for WandaVision, and then also the fact that Vision is there. Do you think that this in some way is bringing back the Soul Stone, which is, I mean, do you think we're going back to the Infinity Stones coming back around somehow?
I don't know. That would explain the multiverse of madness stuff. But I mean, if you remember when the Hulk got the stone that he received from another dimension and all that storyline, he was told when he did it, if he didn't bring it back and replace it where it should be in that timeline, that it would rip apart the universe and the timelines and all that sort of stuff. So my thought gravitated more towards, is this, if Loki is involved in this, which it would seem that he is, because they're doing his TV show as well, and they like to do, threaded storylines and that sort of thing. So if Loki's separate, timeline that he's created is part of that, is this kind of the unraveling of that? Like, is this leading to the multiverse of madness? And this is the first thing she, maybe Wanda's just that perceptive with the powers that she has. Is this something that's affected her before anybody else? That sort of thing. I don't know.
Tim, thoughts?
Yeah, I like where Chad's going.
I just waste way too much time thinking about this stuff.
Oh yeah, and like I said, that's why I did a rewatch, because I wanted to sit and try to eagle eye as much as I could. Couple of things I did notice in the first episode when they're having the dinner party and Agnes comes to the front door And I caught it the first time, and then when I watched it the second time, I even asked I told Bethany, I said, come see if you see what I see. As soon as Wanda opens the door, Agnes is holding the side of her head. And that tied in with, again, no offense to the actress, I'm just always going to call her Kitty from that 70s show. The fact that she kept talking about being woozy, even though you were to believe it was because she was hungry. Mm-hmm. Part of me wondered, after seeing Agnes kind of holding her head, like, is it because of what's happening is, messing with their memories, their mind, and you can't help but, again, go to, wait, I said the Soul Stone. Is the yellow one the Soul Stone? My mind just went, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the Soul.
So, because I was thinking, is it called the Mind Stone? And so I'm see, I can see Chad going, wait, is it? Yeah. So part of me wondered again, is it that whole unsure? Because we saw those cracks. Again, going back to Gwendolyn or Monica, whatever you want to call her, not remembering who she was. And then even, again, I can't remember the character's name. I'm going to call her Anya because I know her from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But the main girl that was preparing everything, when the radio came through, when she even looked off as if something was being broken in her connection to the world and whatnot.
Well, if you back up to that first episode with that strange scene where the boss, Mr. Hart, is getting angry because nobody can produce answers, I very much resonate with what you're saying, Larry, in the sense that it seems like all of these people are real people. They're not necessarily, imaginary or any kind of, fictional thing that they're perceiving, because I think the reason he started choking is they were getting too close to asking, real questions. Like, he's getting upset, and it just broke Mrs. Hart. She just sat there laughing and saying, "Stop it," over and over and over again.
Yeah, but even that performance, you could kind of tell, in her eyes, that she didn't want to be laughing. But it was like something was making her laugh.
But then post that, it seemed like really only Wanda knew that something went super wrong there. Like, even Vision was just like, happy he's getting a promotion now, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Wanda was the only one that seemed disturbed to me about the very bizarre situation that just happened. But even she kind of slides over, going back and going, why don't I know when we got married and where we came from and everything? There's something.
Why haven't I brought this up? Why doesn't she have an accent?
Didn't even recognize that until you just said that, because it would look weird in a 50s sitcom, but you're not wrong.
Yeah,
because it wasn't until that scene at the end of that first episode when they mentioned that she's from my mind just went blank.
Sokovia.
Yeah, I kept wanting to put an L in it. I was like, there's no L in that. That she's from Sokovia, and I was like, oh yeah, she's got an accent. Like, she's had an accent in every other movie. Why doesn't she have an accent?
But unless she's, once again, if that, and I don't keep going back to this, if this is all in her imagination, then that's almost like a dream. Like, maybe that's how she wants to sound like it would sound in that era of TV. So once we get back to the real world, I wouldn't be surprised if she does have the accent. And so, and I know I'm kind of jumping in, but I've been listening a lot. But going back to that dinner party scene, it was really weird. And I'm going to go back and watch them again. I only watched them once, but he chokes, the thing comes out, and then it's like all of a sudden, okay, dinner's over, let's go home. And I was wondering, okay, were they just plants that are trying to see, okay, are they going to use their powers, or how, are they going to try to be normal and keep their secret? So they almost seemed like they were, I wouldn't say spies for lack of a better word, but spies coming into her world or her dream sequence to see what she's going to do, and will she break out of the normal cover she's trying to keep up.
No, and that's my thing too, is about going back to what I said earlier. Is this a Truman Show type thing? Mm-hmm. But playing off of that and what Chad said is, did they, in quotes, cause Mr. Hart to choke, or did Wanda cause Mr. Hart to choke?
Yeah, I'd have to go back.
I'm leaning on the they side of things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, she clearly has control even of like time space, because when the beekeeper shows up, she's just like, "Nah, we're not doing this,"
Right.
and just it rewinds and restarts. The whole scene kind of thing. So I don't know. I am more leaning on the they side of things. I think that the they, quote unquote, is controlling everything in this little town. And if you look at the trailers, the last trailer they dropped before the show came out, there's even a tiny scene where it seems like a character has gotten to the edge of the illusion kind of thing, like it's trying to like poke her hand through this wall kind of deal. So I do think that there is the Truman Show aspect to it, but I don't think it's, I guess why I'm not resonating with that particular analogy is I don't think it's for
you don't think they're faking
entertainment
it?
value.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think this is a how do we control Wanda to get her to do something specifically.
Well, and you talk about that aspect in the trailers. Gwendolyn, or again, Monica Rambeau from Captain Marvel, you see her actually fly like out of whatever it looks like they might be in the 70s by that point, because she's got the fro and her clothes, and she ends up in a field. So we've already seen that coming. But I do want everyone to know that my wife Bethany has joined us. She has not been in the conversation so far, but I know she wants to have her say about the initial reaction here. So go ahead, Bethany. Let everyone know what your initial thoughts were of these first two episodes.
Prove us wrong, Bethany. Prove us wrong.
Well, I'd have to know what you were talking about to prove you wrong. But, I'm not a big... I haven't read the comic books, so I don't know the back history and the story, but I really enjoyed it. I was a big fan when I was a kid of watching Nick at Night, late at night, and so the homages to all the old sitcom stuff was really enjoyable for a very base level reaction to it. I even really liked the Dick Van Dyke Show reference at the very beginning where he almost runs into the chair, which, Dick Van Dyke always fell over, and then he just walked through it.
Just phased through it.
Yeah. But I guess, so my theory, and this is coming out of thin air, because I don't know the history of everything, but I think...
But that's like 80% probably of the audience that's watching it.
Yeah.
So
then I'm the right one, is what you're saying. So anyways, so my theory is Wanda is devastated by the loss of Vision, as we already know. And
House of M. Go ahead.
Bless you. And so she's devastated by the loss of Vision. She possibly gets this idea to bring him back in the only way she knows how. And gets, maybe, you were saying that, what's-her-face was a person, possibly
Agnes,
a bad person.
yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe she's, like, got her helping her. But in order to, really hold the illusion, she's got to block the old memories out. And then possibly some of the other characters, like the Mr. Hart, any person that goes against her is possibly trying to fight to get her out of this because it's causing a bigger issue. That's my theory.
So I don't think that flies in the face of anything that we've been theorizing so far. It actually adds the element that is Wanda doing this of her own volition, which I don't think the three of us really considered yet.
I think she is, but she's doing it without regard to some sort of consequence. Like, she's not aware of some sort of consequence that's going on.
Yeah, kind of a deal with the devil kind of thing.
Yeah.
Going back to the Mephisto reference. Yeah. But, what Bethany said about Agnes, who I theorize is Agatha Harkness, kind of aiding Wanda in this, that's not far off from the comics either. Because Agatha is, in the comics, is one of she's a witch, and she helps train Wanda in the comics to learn a lot of her ability. Which throws me back, we've been talking about the trailer remember there's going to be a Halloween episode in which Wanda's dressed like she is in the comic. Vision will dress like he does in the comic. If you remember, they show Agnes and she's dressed as a witch.
Yeah.
So, still leaning towards that. It's possible. I'm gonna hold on to that one. We'll see where that goes, but I'm gonna hold on.
My good friend Ron West, who's into the 80s Quick Flash podcast, he's on there a lot. But he's the Marvel side of Laramie. Laramie, see, Ron is like my Mr. Marvel. They're both big comic book guys. But we were talking the other day, and he talked a lot about Agnes, and he was saying everything you're saying, that he believes, that the witch. But he mentioned that she sometimes is a frenemy to Scarlet Witch as well. Like sometimes she's helping her, and sometimes she's not. It all based on what benefits her. So I think that's true for the show going forward. That I'm not quick. This is always helping Wanda with the pure intent.
For sure.
So let's kind of bring this home, because we can theorize and do everything and keep discussing. I do want to mention this to both of y'all. Go back and watch the opening of the second episode, the animated opening. When Wanda and Vision end up on the couch, look at the end table next to them. There is a statue of Thor sitting next to them. If you didn't catch that, I just want to point that out. So what I think we want to end this with is, how do you think, in the remaining 6 episodes that they have, how do you think this we mentioned the multiverse of madness possibly, but how do you think this plays into the MCU as a whole? Is this their way of bringing Vision back, or is there a bigger aspect to it? Like, what do you think is ultimately like you mentioned, Kevin Feige and Marvel like to do all the connected stuff. So what seed gets planted with WandaVision? How does this kick off Phase 4 and move everything forward with Phase 4?
Oh, man. I do think that it has something to do with extraterrestrials. And I mean, we've already been shown the sword logo. So I think that it is a big turning point into moving us into the cosmic phase of the Marvel storytelling, where, we're on a crash course with an Eternals movie. There's so much going on that is no longer Earth centric. Mm-hmm. And so I think that this is going to propel us into that. On the details, as far as some of the other stuff you were talking about, I mean, will it bring Vision back into the fold? I don't know, but I kind of hope it doesn't. It would just make storytelling very difficult in that universe if really no one can die. Like, I know people made fun of Endgame bringing back everybody after Infinity War kind of thing, but they didn't bring back everybody. There were still deaths. Even the Loki that we have is not the redeemed Loki that by Infinity War is kind of an anti-hero, that sort of thing.
And Gamora is not the Gamora that we had in the previous films. Right. Yeah.
And I mean, even with a Black Widow movie coming, it looks like Black Widow is dead. So I don't like the idea of now just everything is up in the air. And, if we can get RDJ to come back, does that mean Iron Man also comes back? That sort of, I think that cheapens the storytelling a little bit. So as much as I love seeing Paul Bettany again play the character, and also play, Dick Van Dyke and some, whichever person in I Dream of Jeannie that was, the one he went off of. I don't know. But I just don't. I kind of hope he doesn't come back in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. I'm of the same thought as Chad. Is bringing him back to what the story they've been telling up to this point. So I'm going to throw out a really crazy theory that I just thought of, and I wondered if this is a Galaxy Quest situation where there are extraterrestrials that have found our old TV shows, and now they've caught Wanda and they placed her in these TV shows thinking that they're real. No, I'm totally just joking because I love Galaxy Quest so much. But
right.
But to answer your question, where do I see? Honestly, and to be honest, I really don't want to know. I want to just enjoy the ride over the next 6 episodes and really I want to be amazed at what they do. And I think maybe because we've had to wait so long with pushback because of the coronavirus and not seeing not seeing the Black Widow, things getting pushed back. I just want to enjoy it for what it is. I mean, this is fun to talk about. I'm not saying let's not talk about it, but you guys are talking about the trailers. I purposely did not watch any of the last couple of trailers because I don't want to know. I just want to watch these episodes as fresh as I can when they come up. So all the stuff you talked about, I don't remember. I haven't seen. So I just want to be surprised as well.
We gave a spoiler alert, Tim. I'm sorry.
You didn't mention the trailer.
Tim, don't feel bad. I only noticed it because every 2 minutes Laramie would pause it and be like, "Did you see that?"
On the second viewing, not on the first
no,
viewing.
Sir. No, sir. Back it up.
I would just like to point out how inundated we are with Marvel content when the 8 months is since we've seen a movie come out is like a long time for Tim. It's we're in a drought. We used to wait 4 or 5 years for a sequel to come out, and it's so awesome.
By the way, speaking of being so used to the way Marvel does things, did it catch any of y'all the fact that the credits would start and it wouldn't immediately do the little Disney pop-up? So you almost wondered, is there something I'm about to have to see?
Yeah, I was waiting. For at the end of episode 1, and even for the episode 2, when the credits started to roll, I was like, okay, these credits are different from the first credits, and they were the same. So I fast forwarded them, but I was still hoping to see some, continue some
extra scene
and in credits.
Was I the only one that watched them all the way through the credits, though, just hoping that there was that there would be clues? I'm just watching, what can I pick out of this?
I even said to Bethany, I wonder if the little little digital things they're showing that's forming thing, and the fact that it ends with the interlocking rings, I'm going, do those rings represent something?
Marriage, baby?
But
well, I only
book
thought
wise.
that, because
I think that's a bit of a jump, Bethany.
Well, at the end of the first episode, they made the comment about we don't have rings, and that's kind of how that episode ended. So it made sense for the first time through the credits, but when they replayed the exact same credits for the second episode, I was expecting it to be something different, to pay homage to that second episode, but it didn't. So I'm with you, Lerm. I was like, are the rings of bigger importance that we don't know about, or was it just they didn't want to spend the money to do a different?
That's exactly.
They've run out of budget.
I don't think they're doing those for all 8 episodes.
I mean, it's not like they haven't made any money over the last years.
Yeah, no. Well, they did do completely unique, opening sequences to both, and those are not cheap either.
I mean, again, awesome. that second episode, the opening is a complete animated opening. So, and then you got the animated inside of Vision.
Yeah, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, no kidding. So as a kid of the 90s, I'm not gonna lie, I'm very much looking forward to
the TGIF
angsty Wanda, who looked very much like Claire Danes, from My So-Called Life in the trailer. I was like, man, childhood flashbacks.
I'm hoping they make a Full House reference.
Oh yeah, if they don't do something to the fact that she's the Olsen twins' younger sister.
Yeah. But is that one from the 90s or the 20 teens? I mean, you go either way with that one. So
no.
All right. Well, I think now's a good time as any to kind of wrap this up. We will come back, whether it's this full panel or one of us individually. However we decide to do it, we're definitely going to come back after the full series has dropped in a couple of months and we get all 8 episodes and see what we realized, how close we were to things being right, and what this, as I said, what this ultimately means to the MCU and the kickoff to Phase 4. So I look forward to that, but I'll go ahead and wrap things up. So thank you, Bethany, for jumping in and joining us from the non-comic book nerd perspective. And also thank you, Tim and Chad. And any last words anyone wants to say regarding what they're looking forward to or anything regarding one?
The Samuel L. Jackson cameo that we all know is coming.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. I'm just looking forward to see where it goes. And I think remembering the series that, hopefully this is in one of multiple. I hope it doesn't rush through too fast and they try to, answer too many questions. But I don't want to lose such a 5 seasons to find out that
I don't think we will. I think this is a one and done. I really do. I think.
You do think?
Yeah, I think this is it's one series. It's these 8 episodes, and then there we get a conclusion that ties into something else. I don't think we get a.
Yeah, with the sitcom by decades, I would tend to agree with you there. It does seem like we're rapidly ending what they can do with with the theory behind WandaVision on purpose. Like, I don't think that was an accident. So I agree with you, Laramie.
Now we'll see.
All right. Well, thanks everybody, and thank you for listening. Please review us on Apple Podcasts. It does a lot to keep the momentum of the show going. And join us as we continue watching, and we'll come back in a couple of months to see how things went. But for now, on behalf of all of my guest hosts, I'm Laramie Wells, and for Moving Panels, I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Hello movie viewers and fellow movie lovers. My name is Tim Williams, and I'm the creator and host of Movie Views Presents the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. See, I love the 80s, and I have a great appreciation and nostalgic passion for the classic 80s flicks that birthed my love for movies and ultimately helped shape my childhood. On each episode, I'll discuss, with a special guest co-host of course, a different film from the 1980s. We'll share memories, favorite characters, iconic scenes, and even share some behind-the-scenes stories along the way. We'll discuss famous blockbusters like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Coming to America, Ghostbusters, Dirty Dancing, Top Gun, Die Hard, and many, many more. As well as some other cult classics and even lesser-known flicks we discovered on cable TV or the now-defunct video rental stores. Remember those? No matter what 80s flick we choose to talk about, we'll always have a good time, so come and check us out. You can find the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast on major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and more. Be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss a single episode. Once again, I'm Tim Williams, and I hope you'll join me for the next 80s Flick Flashback.